Welcome to my YouTube channel, Code with Percy. So today we're going to be talking about data types. So what is a data type? A data type is a classification that specifies which type of value a variable has and what the type of mathematical, rational, and a logical operation can be applied to it without causing an error. So our data types are divided into two groups. We have a primitive data type. We have non-primitive data type. So what is a primitive data type? A primitive data type is the most fundamental data type usable in the programming language. And what is non-primitive data type? So a non-primitive data type are created by programmers, and it is not defined by Java, except strings. Strings are defined in Java. And non-primitive types can be used to call a method or to perform certain operations, while primitive types cannot. And primitive data types must always have a value, while non-primitive types can be null. And here is the structure of how they are specified or categorized. So in our primitive, we have Boolean, we have character, we have numeric. So in our Boolean, we have a Boolean with the small letter b. Small letter b is a Boolean. Character in char is under character. Byte, we have byte under integer. We have short, and we have int, we have long. Under floating points, these are the values which have a decimal at which have comma something. So we have float and double. So also one of the more things which you have to remember is size, their bit size. So this section is the most important, especially if you're considering to write a Java exams, because they will ask you about how many numbers, or from which range does which data type store. So you have to remember all, even if you cannot remember, but you can just maybe choose one, because they mostly use this one. This is the most important one which they can ask you about. So I'm going to show you on code on how to use the data types, how to avoid errors and all those things. So here I've done example of data type of byte. So my byte, I have defined it, I've initialized it at 0, and I also printed it using system out print line. Then I specified the value. So let me run it for you. So when you run, you just say Java. C is for compile. After then, you have to specify the name of the file. What is the name of the file? Your file name is type.java. When you compile, you have to remember to put .java at the end, because you are compiling. But if you are compiling using an IDE, you can just come here and run your main class, which means there's no need for you to run. But if you are using a command, you just write javac data type .java, which is .java is your file extension. So you are going to run it, it did run. So for you to run this class, what you must do, you must just say Java and you do what? You run this. It is still building. Here is my value. My value is 0. So one of the errors you have to avoid is, as I've shown you on this diagram, on this graph, that you must know the sizes. So if I can come here and write the value which is out of this range, let me just say minus 129. You see, it is going to give me an error. It is going to give me an error. It says required data type. It will give you byte, but provided I've provided the value of an integer, or I've provided the value of short, or I've provided the value of long. So what you have to do, it must be inside the range of minus 128 to 127. So even if you write 127, it's still going to give you an error. So which means the most important thing you can do is to do what? You must always remember the range on which you have to write your data types. So now I will move to my next data type, which is short. So short, I'll just say short number. So short number, I'll just write any value, which is give me something like this. I want to print it. I want to print it. Here it is. You can just come here and print. Just come here and print. And I have also shown you how to run your code using your code using command line. So here's the value. Here's my value. So I want to maybe do calculations. I just want to show you something. Let me add my byte. Byte. Remember, it must be 127. That's the highest. So if I can just come here and say short sum, I want to calculate now. I can just say short sum equals to plus, and here I can just come and say sum, concatenate the sum. So you see, you cannot add byte and short, but you can do what? You can add short and short. Still you cannot add them, right? Which means you cannot add make a variable of sum using this short and byte. You cannot. So on my next step, I'm going to show you. Now. So for you to use the value sum, if you want to calculate, you are going to use integer. Int can store any value. It can store any value. It will give us an answer. Here is our sum. if you can add these two, you are going to get this answer, right? So I've defined my values. Let's do long now. Let me just come here and int num equals to then let's try using a long and see if it will allow us, if it will not give us an error. It will not, because of this range. It can long can also accept the range, and can also be used for adding a short and byte, right? And you can also add an integer on top. You can also add a long, but you have to remember this: an integer sum, a data type of, if our data type of sum is integer, we cannot do what? We cannot, it cannot add the value of long. So I'm going to make a chapter whereby I'm going to explain to you about a casting. I'll do a chapter talking about casting, because this is very important, especially in casting. So here it is: a long has more data type than what? Than this one. That's why it cannot add, it cannot take the values of integer. So I'm going to proceed to float. So when we talk about float, they are the values with which have a decimal number, or they are the values which have a comma something. They are not right. They are comma something. So I'm going to add all my values here. I'm going to add all my values. I'm going to add all my values here. I'm left with long plus byte. I'm going to add them here. After then, I'm going to display. On it. So as it has a decimal digits, that's where every time you add, if we're adding the whole number, it will give us 0 point something, right? So let's try now and add the float at the end, and add the value of float on our sum. So the other thing that we have to remember is that float has an f at the end of them, at the end. So if we're going to initialize our float a variable, it must have an f at the end, right? We must have an f at the end. But if we can do like this, it's going to give us an error, because this one is going to be classified as a double, which I'm going to talk about it next. So float, you add an F at the end so that they don't give you an error. So if I can just come and say float, let's see the value of the sum after adding the float value at the end. You see, it is going to give me 0.2. I'm going to talk about a double now. Double. I'm going to talk about double. So double works as float, but with a double, you don't need to specify a letter or anything at the end. If you can just do like this, it will allow. Why will it allow? I'm going to talk about it on my next video about casting, because float, it has more bytes than float, but float does not have more bytes than a double. That's why if you can cancel, it will give us an error, because this is a double value, it's not a float value. So yeah, it is, you can just say add double. And remember, if you can have error like this, which means we cannot have a float value, a float another type of sum, because of this double, right? Because double has more bytes than float. So float cannot accommodate double, because double has more bytes than float. So it has to be double. So here's our value after adding this, right? So next I'm going to talk about non-primitive. And remember, non-primitive is what? It is string string arrays, but I won't cover arrays. I'll only cover strings. And yeah, this is how we declare our string. We can just say names, and remember, strings are names, so we can just declare. After declaring, we can just initialize. We can just say code with paste. So string can take sentence, can take names, can take anything, even character. And I think I forgot about to do that character. I will show you now. So if you can just display the string, it will give you code with paste, right? So this is how we declare our non-primitive type, which is a string. So I'm going to show you a character, since I didn't show you. So what is correct? What is correct? A character so I'm going to show you a character. What is a character? A character is a one character. It's like A is a character, B is a character, C is a character, 1 is a character, 2 is a character. Those are our characters, right? So let me show you example of a character. A character, let me just say. So our character, we do like this. is my character. On string we use a double quote. On here we use single quotes, right? So if I can just display my character, I will just show you here. Here did display an H. Here's our H. So on character we have this as ACCI. Instead of, if you don't want to write an H, you can just write this value 124. What does 124 represent? My 124 represent H. It does represent an H. It is, if you want 8, let's see what it represents. 8 represent L, right? If I can, 8 represent L, right? If I can go to 23, 23 will also represent something in characters. So it represents a curly bracket. So yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on how I should improve